Welcome everyone to the Free Forest School Facilitator Training. My name is Catherine Ammon. I'm currently the director for the Free Forest School of Mid-Michigan, and I have several volunteers who will be watching this right now, and I wanted to make it this way so that I could share it to them all at once, and also if anyone else in the future might need this, that this would be helpful for them. I'm going to try and make it as brief as I possibly can, but there is a lot of information to go over, and I didn't want to rush anything. So this way you're able to stop the video if you need to, go back to where you were, or rewatch something anytime you need. So the plan here is to have this uploaded to YouTube for anyone to view, and if everything goes right, you're watching this on YouTube right now. So thank you again for the time spent in learning this information and for volunteering your time and your energy to Free Forest School. A lot of our new members are already wanting to volunteer, which is awesome. And I wanted to start then by going over the mission and objectives of the group. Since so many of you are new and are not yet familiar with how Free Forest School is run and what the goals are, I'm just going to read through some of these for you, and you can always go back and read them yourself later. So the mission of Free Forest School is to ignite the child's innate capacity to learn through unstructured play in nature. Through collaborations with parents, child care providers, educators, school and civic leaders, we find innovative ways to expand access to child-directed play and outdoor exploration. So this is an equal opportunity group. It's a very diverse group, and we seek to be very inclusive. So you'll see later, this is why we don't refer to our members and attendees as parents or mom and dad. We want to be very inclusive in our language and in our philosophy, that we are including adults and children or grown-ups or whatever your choice of language is, because not everyone that attends is going to be a mom or a dad. Our objectives here are to promote natural curiosity and learning through exploring, questioning, hypothesizing, and creating in the natural environment with as much freedom as possible. To create an environment of respect, care, cooperation, non-judgment, safety, and inclusion. And in the forest, this is the best place to do this. You can have so many more options when you're playing out in nature to develop social skills and things like that. To foster comfort in the natural world, aiming to promote a lifelong connection to wilderness and an ethical standpoint for the natural world. To foster decision-making skills and risk assessment in young children in order to build agency and self-regulation skills. To promote body awareness, self-care, and confidence in physical pursuits through physical activity and challenge. To foster healthy social and emotional development. Now this slide goes over the Free Forest School approach in general, and I'm just going to read through some of these, and I'm going to read through it with you. So some of the approach is that it is mainly child-directed. It is child-led. This gives them the opportunity to explore the things that they're interested in, gives them the freedom to follow their own curiosity, and they seek out the things that they're interested in learning at that time. It is emergent in that they're able to come back to the same place that they were last week and see how it's changed, or what a cause and effect was from something they did the week before. Exploration here is multifaceted and meaningful. It is a gentle approach. So we often will use the term gentle touch. So rather than be like, be careful or don't hurt the ant, we'll say just a gentle intonation of words is sometimes enough to be a reminder, and using the tone gentle touch will help them to move gently in their natural environment, among their friends, their peers, and just in what they're doing and how they treat the environment around them and things like that. Nature immersion. So hours spent in the forest, a combination of exercise and light focus, have a calming natural effect, just like how we feel when we step outside in the open air and taking those deep breaths and feeling the sunshine on our skin. Risk and adventure. So this gives them the chance to immerse themselves in some challenges, to partake in healthy risks, and to get to know their own bodies and what they're able to handle and things like that. This is also a mixed age group. So this is something I've noticed, especially for myself, for my own child. It's so interesting seeing her interact with children that are younger and older than her. The older children she is around encourages her to try new things that she had never even considered before. Whereas I noticed when she's around children younger than her, it encourages her, it seems like, to be very patient and gentle in a way that she might not normally be. So it's a very interesting thing to be a part of when you put groups of children together that aren't just second grade, third grade, fourth grade. It's a group of social peers. It's place-based. Each week we return to the same spot at the same time, same day. So the children are able to get to know the area, and they're able to retry challenges and explore, hey, I wasn't able to do this last week, but this week I can. And that also builds confidence. So adults as protectors of play. So the adults are intentional in participation. We often will model the type of play that we hope to see in our own children or in our own attendees that we bring with us, and that allows them to kind of get an idea of, oh, I see mom over there building a mud fort, that looks kind of cool, or that sort of thing, And so if the adults are relaxed, the children will feel more at ease that this is a safe space to explore and to not feel like I need to be in some rigid social setting. Lastly, inclusion and community. We are, like I said, very into inclusive and diversity in Free Forest School. And so this allows that social opportunity where this mixed group of all types of people are able to get together, and children learn to participate together regardless of race, religion, gender, any of those things. And it's just about being together as a community and learning to work together as people. We share food, we share sticks, and we share building the forts together and things like that. This graphic is a simple FAQ graphic that is on all of our groups, and it's just something good to get to know as a volunteer facilitator, because these are the most frequently asked questions. It is good to know. So things like coming prepared. You want to know what to tell your attendees to bring in advance of your event. So things like dressing weather appropriately, leaving strollers and toys and pets at home, to bring a blanket, things like that. To slow down, we encourage keeping the cell phone put away as much as possible, to be intentional, to be a little bit quieter and more introspective during this time, that this is a time to just enjoy being in nature. So we also encourage grown-ups to become an observer. So this means to see what interests them, watch them explore, gradually step back as you see their confidence grow. Model curiosity, like I was talking about earlier, dig your own hole or stop by to look at a bug, and to let the child take risks. And this is hard to do as parents sometimes, but it is important that we allow them to engage in risky behavior, in healthy risky behavior, so that they're able to develop their confidence and their mobility and things like that. And ultimately, all caregivers are in charge of their own attendee, and so they have to know, when is it a healthy time to step in, and when is it okay to take a deep breath and just step back and let them do what they're trying to do, because worst case scenario, they fall in a mud pit or what have you. So this is always up to the grown-up. We also share a snack. We do avoid peanut snacks because of, unknown allergies that might be within the group. And we don't want to keep them out at all times, just because that keeps the kiddos from, involving themselves in play at times. Always bringing water bottles, things like that. We encourage trusting your instincts. You are responsible for your own child's safety again, so to follow that instinct and helping them to assess risk and set boundaries. It's a place where caregivers can practice letting kids enjoy freedom. Over time, they'll become more independent and skilled at managing risk for themselves. Trust your instinct, set the boundaries that you deem appropriate for your child, and just have fun. Also, protecting play. We're mentioning this again. With letting kids playing freely in nature is central to the experience, but sometimes adults need to intervene. And we have a safety rhyme for this reason, and a lot of times it includes extra verses. We'll get to that later, but things like when friends are around, sticks are pointed at the ground. Throwing rocks is fine from the front of the line, and this is to avoid having to step in and things like that. We protect the safety, but also we want to let the kiddos kind of work out their own disagreements and things like that, and that helps them, again, to foster those social skills. This is committing to the community, placing value on your free membership by helping people who need it, making friends, welcoming newcomers into the group, asking for help if you need it, and just showing up as well. Update your RSVP. This is really important. So it's important to update the RSVP because it helps us to know what to expect as a facilitator. For example, was someone for sure coming and they're not here yet? Should we wait on the welcome talk so that they don't miss anything? That kind of thing. And you can't always depend on this because some people say they'll show up and just don't, but it is helpful to know kind of a range of who you're expecting and what you're looking at. And as your time goes on, I'm sure you'll get to know who your regulars are, and if they're missing, you might know to wait an extra minute or two before starting without them. And giving back. So you can get involved in Free Forest School. It is 100% volunteer run. If you'd like more opportunities, you can join the team of facilitators or helping with an admin like you're doing right now. And there are also donation opportunities as well. I'm only going to go over some bits of this, but this is just a little slide you can come back to when you need to that describes the language that facilitators and directors might use going over things with Free Forest School. For example, when I post an event, it is posted by season. So that's like a 12 to 14 week scheduling period to span a season, like fall, summer. That way, our attendees are able to see the regular pattern and pre-plan to be able to make it to our sessions. The sessions are the recurring event. So for us, that's like Tuesdays in Grand Blanc or Thursdays at Richfield Park. That way, the session, you could call it an event if you want, but down here you can see an event is really more just a single instance. So, say there's something really great, going on, or it's really great weather at the free beach nearby, and you might just post an event that's just going to happen just that one day, and it's not going to be recurring. So really, you're posting an event, but your recurring events are called sessions, if that makes sense. So you've got your one-time event, which is very much like a pop-up, a one-time event at a specific date, time, location. The site is where any of these things happen. It's your location. The meeting spot, that is where you're going to hang out and wait for everyone to show up. And that's usually where you have your welcome talk as well. So anyone can kind of just meander up and know where you are and join in if they're a little bit late. The welcome talk is a brief 5-minute facilitator-led overview. Most of the people listening to this, at least as it's first posted, are going to be familiar with what this is. This is, the chat we do to remind everyone of the goals of Free Forest School, to make sure everyone has their waiver signed, and just a chance to introduce ourselves as well, because every week there tends to be new people. So at that time, we have the shared snack. It's a potluck snack, sets the tone of sharing and cooperation. And I noticed that there's a lot more sharing of snacks during the circle time than there is during the welcome talk. But either way, it is considered potluck style. And so that's why we encourage everyone to bring just a little bit of extra snack if they can, in case other kids want to share. There is Basecamp as well. This is where we do the free play, and around where we stop for circle time, story, songs, etc. And it's after our walk is when we get to Basecamp. So the walk is the time spent between the welcome talk and arriving at Basecamp. And this is noted here because we do avoid the term hike, because we're not really looking to make it into a hike. We do allow them to, of course, stop at any point during this trail to observe anything they would wish to. Nothing is forced in Free Forest School. If they want to stop and observe something along the trail for the whole time, like they found a log full of bugs, then that's exactly what we let them do. Again, the term child-led play and free play. This is the 1 hour of uninterrupted play without any agenda that occurs at the meeting. This is when we get to Basecamp, we do at least 60 minutes of uninterrupted play before we start circle time. Which brings us to circle time, a gathering time featuring books, songs, and reflection at Basecamp. Down here we also have the roles. The chapter is the group that's connected to the main Free Forest School organization. So for example, we are the Mid-Michigan chapter of Free Forest School. There is the directors and leadership team. These are volunteers who oversee admin and coordination of the chapter, i.e. posting the sessions, the events, and writing in the details and things like that. The site and session leads are volunteers who coordinate scheduling and other site or session specific details. Facilitators, which is what I assume most of you listening are, volunteers who lead individual events or sessions. Members and participants, children and caregivers who attend these events. Let's talk about the role of the facilitator. This will be your role. So it's intended to be very simple, low-key, that way anyone can do it. And it's not meant to feel overwhelming or burdensome, it's meant to be enjoyable. Some facilitators lead every week, others rotate and have a co-facilitator situation, and there are, I believe, 3 to 5 of you on here that are doing that. And others are just ready to substitute at any point if the main facilitator can't make it. Sometimes you can do every other week or once a month. You are not responsible for the safety of anyone's children besides your own. You're not responsible for providing nature expertise or serving as a guide. You're not responsible for making sure other people have fun or do it right or for planning activities. You are simply a point person who provides a gathering place, orients the newcomers, and nudges the group through your sort of loose routine that we're going to talk about later. We encourage you to make sure that the location, timing, and frequency of the events you lead are convenient so that you can sustain and enjoy your role as facilitator rather than burning out. It should be something you look forward to and consider to be a positive addition to your life. Plus, the simpler you keep it, the more likely it is others will be willing to join the team and share the load going forward. Meaning, if you walk into all of your meetings and are super frazzled and stressed out, they're probably not going to think it looks like that much fun to help. And without the help, you'll probably stay a little bit stressed if you overbooked yourself. So these things are all important. Here are your tasks for an event. You'll post a reminder to your chapter's main Facebook page to let everyone know the event is coming up. So I usually do this the day before, or if it's a nighttime one, the morning of. Keep an eye on the weather so you're aware of the possibility of dangerous conditions, in which case you'll announce the cancellation of the event, and we will talk about how to do that later. If for any reason, like illness, you're unable to facilitate as scheduled, you'll make sure to either get the event covered by a co-facilitator or other member of the team, or set the event as self-led, and we'll talk about all of that in a little bit. For now, I plan to do all of the admin work myself, just to get us started, since this is new for me as well, to have other helpers involved. That way you guys can kind of just focus on starting up, and after a couple weeks, if you feel more confident and comfortable, you're more than welcome to post all the events yourself. But I thought that I could help out by just continuing to do that myself for now. And again, if you do have any illness, travel plans, always look for a substitute within your group or talk to the director. That way we can get that covered for you, and as a very last resort, we can set it as self-led or cancel. Here are your tasks during the event. You'll show up a few minutes early. It doesn't need to be excessive because you're going to wait till a little bit after the start time anyway, just to make sure everyone has a chance to get there before you get started. You're going to lay out a blanket where people can gather. Most people bring their own as well, but it's good to just have kind of an open-ended area in case anyone forgot. And it also lays out a general area where people are welcome to sit. Be sure to greet people as they arrive. Being welcoming and inclusive is key, and for me personally, this is so important. I feel very strongly that all the facilitators, especially under our chapter, are friendly. And, I'm not saying anybody needs to be outgoing, but it is necessary to make people feel the desire to come back and to feel included and to feel comfortable, because it's scary sometimes going to a new place, even as adults. So it's really, really important to me that everyone is at least friendly and offers a hello, welcome to our group, things like that. Give a 5-minute welcome talk at the start. This can be 5 to 10 minutes if you're doing introductions, whatever is comfortable and flows naturally. And then initiating circle time at the end. Here we read a book, sing a song, or you can always enlist someone else in the group to do this, and you can get some help one day, or someone can bring in a guest book. A general event schedule looks like this. You're going to start by gathering for the welcome talk and shared snack, between 5-20 minutes, whatever flows naturally for you and the kiddos. After that, we're going to walk to the base camp, and base camp should be around 5 to 15 minutes of a walk. And the longer time period is more so that the kiddos have options to, stop and look at something if they want to. In general, my base camps are a very short walk because we have a lot of younger kids, and so they often like to stop along the way, or they toddle or whatever. That way, say it's actually a 5-minute adult walk, that can turn into a 10 to 15-minute kid walk. Then you have free play and exploration. This is at least an hour of free play before circle time, and this should be in a multifaceted area. We'll talk about that later. After that, you have circle time, and that's 15 to 20 minutes of another potluck snack, of your story, of your singing, asking, what was everyone's favorite thing at forest school today, things like that. And then after this, attendees can stay to play as long as they wish. They can leave for naps if they need to. Whatever the grown-ups and kids want to do at that point is perfect. Here are your tasks after the event. You're going to please let me or your chapter director know any issues you may have had. And of course, you can include your co-facilitators, if they weren't there to see it or anything like that. Any issues or concerns that arose during the event. That's really important. That way we can kind of all work through any chapter issues together. And then also, we will provide a brief recap of highlights from the event to the chapter group. So if you're in our group, you've seen some of this already, where we share a couple quality photos, and we do aim for quality over quantity when it comes to the photos. And also, we want to just talk about what was interesting that day to get. Here are your tasks after the event. You're going to please let me or your chapter director know any. Let's quickly go over some do's and don'ts. Facilitators do and can make everyone feel included, remind adults they are responsible for their own kids' safety, which you would do during your welcome talk, provide a meeting point and intro talk, know the trails in a basic sense, you'll learn about this as you're scouting, keep track of the time and initiate circle time, lead songs, read a book, or ask for help with this, offer an optional activity sometimes, lead by example or with a gathering bell, ask for help or input from other participants, look for ways to let the children lead, and encourage others to volunteer. Now, facilitators do not and cannot chat only with their friends. This is very exclusive. Decide if something is safe or not safe for the group or someone else's child. Offer first aid if someone is hurt. I want to caveat this by saying this doesn't mean if you have Band-Aids in your backpack and somebody has a scrape that you shouldn't offer it to them. But don't be the sole source for, that you lead the group in such a sense they think that you are there to be the physician and things like that. Don't apologize if someone gets hurt. You don't serve as a guide for the group. You're not like a nature guide in this sense. You're just helping people to know what the session is going to entail. Don't use Free Forest School as a soapbox for your cause. For example, if you sell something on Etsy or you sell Lululemon or whatever, this is not the time to talk about it. That's something that is for your personal Facebook page or what have you. You do not need to and shouldn't require children to participate in anything. When you get to circle time, if there's a kiddo that is not interested, that is perfectly fine. We just let them do what they're doing and stay interested in whatever they're curious about. And we don't shout to get children's attention unless in an emergency. Now, I noticed with our larger groups, it is difficult to stick to this because you kind of have to raise your voice to be heard when the group gets a little bit more spread out. But definitely don't shout in a yelling sense by any means. And they don't feel they're responsible for everyone. You are there to enjoy yourself too. Let's go over the welcome talk a little bit. The purpose of it is to portray a welcoming and accepting vibe, and also to instill that sense of community from the get-go. It sets the tone that the day belongs to the children. We try to address the children specifically and firstly, and this encourages adults to also, we want to encourage adults, to do less. We communicate that adults should trust their own parenting style and judgment to keep kids safe, meaning that where one parent might hesitate to step in a certain situation, another caregiver might choose to do that sooner, and that's okay. We want to also briefly address the routine, some ground rules, and any potential hazards, usually with the safety rhyme. When addressing the kiddos during your welcome talk, you want to make sure to make it clear that they take the lead. You want to address them during your chat. You want to tell them what to expect, that we're going to do our walk to Basecamp. There will be free time to play and explore for an hour. After that, we're going to do a circle time with a story. And if you want to play after that, that's awesome. On the trail, you want to make sure they have a general idea of how the group will decide where to go or when the trail forks. So for example, during the safety rhyme, you say things like, can I see an adult? Can an adult see me? And also, have a general rule that everybody that hits the fork in the road waits until they see the person behind them sees where they went, kind of thing. And if you don't have any forks in your paths, this doesn't apply, but this does help to know because every park is going to be a little bit different. And for safety, the same thing. We want to make it clear that they always need to be able to see an adult as they play, because especially the older kiddos will sort of spread out and get really interested in things they see, and it's something for them to be able to be mindful about. And also, it's a good time to address known hazards like poison ivy, snakes, something like that, and that is at the point where we then do the safety rhyme with them. Now, when you address the adults during the welcome talk, things you want to point out are making sure that everyone signed the waiver. This could simply be saying, has everyone signed the waiver? And if they haven't, maybe even keep it up on your phone real quick so that you have the link to it and they can just quickly fill it out if they haven't. But this is part of the event reminders the day before that you include. Please be sure to sign the waiver before attending. And also we remind them that it is child-led, that if they want to stop and look, that's okay. If they don't want to stop for circle time, that's okay. And that it's just a time for us to get to step back and do less with them, to intervene less, to prompt less, and to hover less. And we just give them their own freedom at this point to explore the things that make them naturally curious without us having anything to do with it. We talk a little bit about risky behavior, support kids in finding safe ways to try things like throwing wax, swinging sticks, or climbing, rather than simply forbidding them altogether. We can kind of work with them at home. Some of this is part of the safety rhyme. We can offer our assistance at times if we see them doing something that we're getting a little bit nervous about. But at the same time, it's good to just, show them that these are acceptable behaviors, absolutely, as long as we do them in a safe way. And with photos, usually we like to appoint a photographer to make sure families know how to opt out of the photos if desired. And some of what I say during the welcome talk about this is I ask if anyone's willing to volunteer to take a couple quality photos of the group as they see them, especially during circle time. Often I'm usually the one, so I don't have to distract anyone from their conversation or from their play to be the photographer for me. If I'm facilitating the session, usually I take the pictures myself and I'll just ask someone to take a photo of circle time for me. But that is totally up to you. Since you're holding a book, it's kind of difficult to do that. So I just tell them that we are just going to have a couple quality group photos, and this allows them to be more present and feel that they're able to step back from their phones for a little bit just to enjoy being present and watching what their kiddos are interested in. Also, we point out that there's no wrong way to do free forest school, that everyone does it differently. You know what is best for your child. And like I said, some people may step in sooner to help their child than others will, and that is all okay. We also tell them to ask for help or that they can offer help. We aim to be a supportive, cooperative group, and we're all a team here. Here are some tips about facilitating the welcome talk. So first of all, be brief. Free forest school centers on the children, which as we know, do not have a super long attention span. And the welcome talk should also be short, sweet, excitable, and addressing the children. We want to make it fun by considering singing a name song or otherwise having participants introduce themselves. You can just go around and introduce names. The kids can say their own name if they want, or we can do a name song where you sing. And at this point, I'd like to recommend that everyone subscribe to the Free Forest School YouTube channel because there are so many great ideas on there. For example, you can see lots of welcome talk examples, welcome talk songs, and different circle time ideas as well. Consider using a gathering bell as well, or any other instrument, to signal the beginning of welcome talk, and also circle time. It allows you this nonverbal signal that they'll learn to recognize, and they can then self-regulate for the change of pace that's happening. Here's an example of a sample welcome talk. Thank you so much for coming to Free Forest School. I see new faces and some familiar faces. We're going to take a minute to talk about what to expect today, and then we'll head off into the woods. Kids, I'm going to start out talking to you because you are in charge at Free Forest School. Exciting, right? Our trail has a couple of splits in it, so we'll take turns deciding which way to go. Whoever has this stick gets to pick up, then we'll pass it on to another kid. If we get spread out, make sure to wait at each fork until the people behind you see which way you went off, okay? We'll find a good spot to stop and play, and then we'll have circle time, where we read a book and sing some songs. When we're out in the forest, there are a couple things to watch out for. We have some poison ivy near our trail, and there are some snakes in our forest, so let's make sure to give them space. Remember to stay where an adult can see you when you're exploring, okay? Adults, first of all, we want to make sure everyone has signed the waiver. Good. Also, just a reminder that Free Forest School is meant to be a place where kids can take the lead, and we as adults can drop back, step back a bit, and leave our agendas at the door. Try to let your kids decide how to play rather than jumping in to give them ideas. In terms of risky things like throwing rocks and playing with sticks, we encourage you to help your kids find ways to keep everyone safe while they still try these things, rather than just saying no. That said, you know your child best, and there's no wrong way to do Free Forest School. For grown-ups, the same as for kids, we want this to be a space where we can all experiment with our own version of relaxed parenting and learn from each other without any judgment. Please enjoy the day and know that everyone here can lend a hand if you need it. Finally, we like to appoint one photographer so the rest of us can put our phones away for the day. Would anyone like to volunteer? If anyone doesn't want photos taken of their child or themselves, please let our photographer know. And if anything does accidentally get posted, let us know and we'll take it down right away for you. We've already had the chance to talk about inclusion a little bit, so let's dive into what that means a little bit deeper. So in referring to adults, we strive to use the term parents and caregivers together, or simply adults or grown-ups, rather than less inclusive terms such as parents, moms, etc., because not everyone there that is bringing a child is a parent, not everyone is a mom. Sometimes they're just caregivers or friends out for the day or what have you. And so we want to be as inclusive as possible in our language. Now, for holidays, we do refrain from promoting or highlighting holidays, religions, or political viewpoints in our events or posts. While it can be tempting to host a holiday-themed Free Forest School event, it's neither inclusive of all members nor in line with the child-directed nature of Free Forest School. Children will naturally process important events in their lives through play, including the holidays they're celebrating at home. A possible exception, in my personal opinion, may be Earth Day, just because this is more about celebrating the changing seasons and sustainability of the Earth and a smaller ecological footprint, which is in line with the Free Forest School philosophy. But things like Christmas or Hanukkah, these things are not going to be inclusive to all members. So also for special needs, we want to be conscious about any special needs that might arise among the attendees and work with them to find a solution that will accommodate their situation if at all possible. Also be aware that neurodiverse kids with ADHD, sensory issues, or are on the autism spectrum, etc., may not have been diagnosed yet and may just present as having a difficult time in certain situations. Ideally, their needs can be accommodated and their caregivers can be supported even without a label through flexibility and understanding for any kids who are struggling with a particular expectation or situation. A suggestion for this is that once a month in your chapter, or maybe even in your group, we can find maybe even a once monthly or every other week meeting that is, for example, handicap accessible, where we can sort of forego our rule about it being a rustic site and do a paved site so that everybody has the opportunity to be a part of Free Forest School, even when they can't make it down a rustic path. Let's talk about cancellations a little bit. So Free Forest School meets rain or shine, except in extreme cases like dangerous weather. First of all, please keep an eye on the weather the day preceding your event. If dangerous conditions seem likely, contact the director at least an hour in advance of the event start time to cancel your event, until we can go over how to do this yourself in another training. If you arrive at a Free Forest School event and then decide it feels unsafe, just remain in the parking lot until the normal time to notify anyone else who arrives, unless it's unsafe to do so, but just so that you can kind of keep an eye out and let them know that it's been canceled. So reasons for weather cancellation are going to include dangerous conditions that have been forecast, such as flash flooding, hail, thunderstorms, high winds, severe heat or cold, blizzard, etc. Flooding or another circumstance, including scheduled deer hunting, has made the park inaccessible or the park has been closed, and our group's presence would damage trails due to the current conditions. We all know that things come up, so what if you can't make it? On occasion, due to illness, travel plans, sudden schedule changes, etc., you may be unable to facilitate an event that you were scheduled to lead. If at all possible, you should first attempt to find a substitute facilitator, be this a co-facilitator, or also even just someone who's regular in your group that you know knows how things work. Now, in finding a substitute, check with your co-facilitators for the session, if any. If no co-facilitators are available to take over for you, you can also reach out to a regular attendee to lead if you feel they're able to do so. If none of these options work, you may set the event as self-led, but we do want this to be a very rare thing. We really hate for new people to show up and, heaven forbid, they be the only one and not know what's going on. So a self-led event, if it ever does come up for you, is one where no facilitator is able to be present. There is thus no official welcome talk, no circle time, and we still encourage families who are available to attend and keep an eye out for other Forest School families or to simply enjoy some solo time in the woods with their children. The reason for self-led events is to maintain the sense of weekly consistency of the session, even when no facilitators are available. As inevitably happens on occasion, especially since facilitating is done by caregivers of young children on a volunteer basis, this encourages families to be able to commit to attending regularly, which has many benefits. However, if events are set to self-led too frequently, it can disrupt the sense of consistency and cause attendees to give up on the session. For this reason, we strongly recommend that this option is used sparingly. Contact your director to set any event to self-led if this is ever the case for you. Bonus tips. Greeting attendees. Be welcoming, please. Your greeting will often be the first part of people's Free Forest School encounter. A simple, welcome to Free Forest School. I'm the facilitator today. If you brought a snack to share, you can put it here on the blanket. We'll go a long way. If people are new, you can ask if they have any questions. If people with kids wander past looking hesitant, ask them, are you here for Free Forest School? The main thing to avoid is only talking to your friends and regulars, which can leave newcomers feeling pretty unwelcome. At Basecamp, encourage families not to lay out blankets right when you arrive there, because this tends to encourage kids to sit down and ask for more snacks rather than scattering to play. At our Basecamp, for example, our circle time area is actually a little bit of a walk back in the other direction, and so nobody lays out blankets anyway, if this helps anyone. Resist the urge to immediately launch into a structured activity, any kind of theme you may have planned. Instead, give kids a chance to follow their own interests and devise their own forms of play. One great approach is to quietly model play or curiosity. If necessary, facilitators may eventually introduce an activity for those struggling to become engaged, but activities should always be optional and very open-ended. Here's the brief version of the safety rhyme that we use at the end of our welcome talk. Many facilitators include a safety rhyme during their welcome talk to help kids remember the biggest reminders. It works well to say each line and then have the group, kids and parents, repeat it back to you. Below is one example, and you can find additional versions, and you can ask me for more whenever needed. Can I see an adult? Point to your eyes here. Can an adult see me? Leaves of 3, hold up 3 fingers. Leave them be, pull back. If I see a snake, or a snake sees me, I'll back away. I mimic this here, as quiet as can be, with a finger up to my mouth, shushing. So here's just an example of some fun things, and I noticed that the kids kind of get involved doing this miming with me as well. Here are some circle time bonus tips. When to start circle time depends largely on the ages of the participants. Younger children often need to get home for a nap. Older children who lack these time constraints can benefit most from the long, uninterrupted periods of free play. So just take stock of your group and what kind of age groups you have there. To gather the participants, lay out your blanket, walk around Basecamp ringing your bell or other gathering instrument. Encourage the group to form a single tight circle. With a larger group, you might consider having one central blanket for the children if you have one, with the adults sitting further out. But remind adults that participation is important. Children love to hear our voices and will follow our lead. Circle time can be adapted to fit your personal style. Some facilitators love to lead songs or finger plays, others prefer to start with a book. You might want to take some time to invite children to reflect and share about something they saw or did that day. Or you might find that a game or interactive activity works better. Feel free to invite participation of others through song requests, guest readers, asking questions, etc. Some children straggle away during circle time, drawn back to their play, and this is fine. Circle time is always optional. And be yourself. Being a facilitator looks different for everyone. It's a role that is fluid and changeable, shaped by your personal style and experience. Keep this in mind as you're watching others facilitate as well, to not compare their approach with yours. There are many different ways to facilitate for a school. Some people are super outgoing, others are more reserved. Some people have lots of knowledge to share about the local flora and fauna, and other people just really like parenting, and that's what they're there for. Don't feel that you have to follow any particular model. Just do what flows naturally for you, and everything will be okay. What does child-led look like? We want to stick to the basic structure, the very basic routine that we follow every week. Shared snack, welcome talk, walk to the base camp, free play, then circle time. This provides a predictable rhythm so that the kids can begin to pick up on this routine themselves. That way they can start making their own choices, take the lead, and still be able to follow this loose routine. Be ready to drop your agenda. We always have the best laid plans, but sometimes the kids will discover something along the way and they'll want to stay there for all of your playtime rather than going to base camp, and that's all okay. We want to foster this curiosity. Let the kids dive into free play. So while there are many wonderful adult-led activities you could prepare and provide, most of it is really not necessary. It's fun to think about different activities we can pre-plan and book themes and things like that. And while sometimes it's appropriate, say for a suddenly changing season or something like that, generally speaking, we just want to let them immerse in free play. Listen to children's needs. Yes, we tried to share a snack in the beginning and then tuck it away so the kids can focus on playing. But if a kid is still hungry, feel free to feed them later on. Once their tummy is full, they'll be ready to head off to explore. If a cranky toddler needs to get home for nap time, it's fine if they skip circle time. If nobody's dressed warmly enough and everybody is miserable, just feel free to cut things short and head back early. So what about on the trail? The part of being child-led that most often throws folks for a loop is when we put a group of children on a trail and tell them to lead the way to base camp. How can you make sure everyone ends up at the same final destination while avoiding known hazards like steep cliffs or temptations like a playground? And I've definitely seen that a lot of kids don't end up even staying with their own caregiver. There are many different ways to structure the child-led walk and Basecamp selection process, depending on how your site is laid out. For example, we can take turns. If we've got a bunch of forked interweaving trails, we can take turns who takes the lead. There's a leader of the day. If there aren't enough forks to let everyone take a turn picking, there are multiple potential Basecamp options. You can pick one kid to be the leader each day. You can take, like I said earlier, you can have one be the leader for each fork. So choose your own adventure. If you have a lot of older kids, returning families who know the forest and several Basecamp options, you can decide during the welcome talk where to meet up that day and let everyone find their way there. Any newcomers will need to be paired with a returning family who can help them find their way, of course. We let the kids set the pace. Just tell the group that there is a way that you're going and let the kids be in charge of the pace and what happens along the way. Encourage them to and remind their grown-ups to let them stop, explore, and play if they want to. In all of the above situations, some advanced planning and clear communication about what to expect is key to making it easier for the adults to relax and the kids to take the lead. Taking a few minutes during the welcome talk to lay out the plan can go a really long way. So how do you deal with forks in the trail? Sometimes there are trail markers, flags, rock piles, or arrows drawn in the mud that could be used to let the group know which fork was chosen in case the walking party gets spread out. And just make sure to let everyone know what method you're deciding to use so they know what to look for. You could try asking someone to stay at the fork until everyone passes that spot, or encourage families to wait at each fork until the family behind them gets close enough to be able to see where they went. Does the park have an information stand with a map? You can point out the route on a map to any newcomers during the initial meetup, or even you could write it in your event description so that if someone is late, they'll still know which way to go. Some groups also appoint a sweep that will stay at the back of the group, knowing that the group will get spread out and they'll be able to help everyone from the front to the back be able to get there. You may see that we promote events, usually on our Facebook group page. So let's talk about why we do this. For several key reasons, we strongly recommend that you post specific details, the time, exact meeting location, etc., of your events only on the event page in the chapter's Facebook group. And your director may or may not be the one to do this, or it may be you as a facilitator. That just depends on your group. But this increases the safety by making sure everyone who sees these details has gone through the basic screening process, allows people to RSVP so that you have a sense of how many attendees to expect. It also encourages people to stay connected with the chapter in an ongoing fashion, and it ensures that interested attendees will see any changes or updates that may happen, including last-minute cancellations for dangerous weather. So for example, if you were to post on your own personal Facebook page or text a friend or something that, hey, we're meeting at this time and place for forest school, but then, something happened and it got canceled, they wouldn't see that update. So it's really important to have this, and also for the RSVPs, so you have an idea, and so that they can see future meetings as well. If you're posting about your event elsewhere, email, other Facebook groups, community calendars, etc., we recommend that you keep the information very vague and general, just that, for example, Free Forest School of Mid-Michigan will be launching a new weekly session on Tuesday mornings in Grand Blanc, or whatever. So you can also link them for more information. Here's our Facebook group, and then they can join and see the events on their own. You may be wondering why we do the events in the same place every week. Every time a child visits a new place, they need time to adjust, to orient themselves, and to feel safe. They are more likely to cling close to their parents during this phase, feeling nervous or uncomfortable, and they're less likely to experiment creatively in their play. When kids return repeatedly to the same place, they can build on their friendships, their conversations, and their projects from week to week. They can work up to new physical challenges such as climbing or stream crossing, and most importantly, the children can watch, wander about, and investigate the natural changes caused by seasons, weather, and other natural forces. We schedule out for each location, date and time, a season at a time, and that's the 12 to 14 week sessions usually, so that it becomes a predictable schedule. We've talked a little bit about scouting already, so let's go in depth about what it actually is. It's the process of visiting your potential locations to decide whether they'll be a good site for your events. We can't stress enough how important it is to thoroughly scout potential sites first before holding your official event. And if you scouted a few weeks prior to your event, go back and scout a second time because these outdoor landscapes change so quickly. I really recommend doing that. Choosing the right site for free forest school meetings is essential. A poorly chosen site may be difficult to access, may not permit free exploration, and may lead to frustration or harm. The best free forest school locations allow children the freedom to explore and take appropriate risks with minimal adult intervention. And that's what we're looking for, minimal adult intervention where they can have free play. Look for a place where you can mostly say yes to any impulses, where there are areas for them to engage in healthy risks where you don't have to say, be careful, watch out for that. No, don't go over there. We want forest school to be as much of a yes space as possible. Because you will return to the same spot every week on an ongoing basis, once you launch a session there, you will want to make sure the spot you pick has enough to offer the kids for coming back on a regular basis. You'll want interesting things, fallen logs, water play, that sort of thing. Scouting the location carefully will also reveal potential challenges and hazards of the site, which you may need to take into consideration. So for example, you can scout something first on your own and then maybe even bring your own kiddos, and then you'll notice certain things that maybe you didn't notice before. Maybe a cool area you didn't notice that your toddlers are really into, or a dangerous spot that's on their level that you didn't notice before because you're much taller, for example. Scout on your own if you can in order to get a broad overview of the park and find out where your meeting space and base camp may be. And then, like I said, taking kids on a subsequent trip is also a good idea. Okay, don't let this slide intimidate you, but I do want to point out just a few things what to look for. So this will include things like accessibility. Is it easy for people to get to this site? Will there be any transportation options for people who don't have cars? Is it free and open? And by the way, please feel free to pause this slide so you can read more thoroughly the details that are written on the slide. You want it to be on public land. You don't want it to be somebody's private property, of course. Does the park close frequently? Are there private events? Things like that to keep in mind. Group impact and use restrictions. So some parks have a maximum group size, or you even have to get permits. You also want to keep in mind that this is meant to be a free event, and so a lot of state parks often require payment upon entering. So you want it to be as free as possible and keep paid play dates to just the occasional pop-up event. The scale. A huge park with extensive trails can be great, but the smaller wilderness areas provide a scale that enables children to practice group decision making and hone navigation skills. It also makes people who are late able to find you easier if they know where your meetup is already and it's not too far. Risk and difficulty of terrain. The paved flat city parks are boring sights. Parks that are more forested offer these rolling hills or rocky trails, bubbling brooks, that kind of thing that offer challenges and make things very interesting and different week to week. So you want a more rustic area when you're scouting and nothing that's, paved, definitely no playscapes, things like that. You want to take into account hazards, something like, is there broken glass or something like that? Is there really deep water that's moving too fast, which at our site, one area had something like that. Unfortunately, it had a very safe bridge to be able to cross over and find our base camp just past it. There were other places where there was no bridge, and so I knew that's not the trail we want to go down because I saw that being a potential hazard that was not a healthy risk, rather just an actual potentially harmful risk, and also poison ivy. So a meeting spot. You'll need to pick a specific place for the group to meet where it's safe, it's remote from the busy roads because the kids can sometimes be running around while they're waiting, and you want it to have an obvious landmark so that participants can find this meeting spot easily. Your base camp, you'll want to identify one or even more, and this is where the group can spread out. We have mamas that nurse, we have mamas that play with their kiddos, we have mamas that just talk, we have caregivers that just talk, we have dads that just talk, that kind of thing. We want everyone to be able to do what is comfortable for them, and so for this we need space. We want to offer, again, something that's nearby our meeting spot so that anyone can join up with us in case they're late. And there are areas where kiddos can even just expand a little out from the places they've looked at other weeks and, see a new fallen tree they didn't notice before and play in that for another week or two. Parking, we want to be careful about this to make sure that if there's limited parking, we choose an area where, we're able to sort of guess, how many people we're going to have coming, and is this going to be sufficient for our parking needs? Are they going to have to cross a busy road to get there? Is it safe? Is there free parking? That sort of thing. Bathrooms. A lot of times there aren't bathrooms. Sometimes there will be some porta-johns near the parking lot or a public bathroom. And this is great. This is absolutely great, of course, so that they can kind of make that, go potty before we go for a school sort of thing. But we also encourage use of bathrooming in the woods when need be. And this just is part of developing a relationship with nature. And we definitely have kiddos that will go ahead and they feel comfortable pottying outside. So if there's not a bathroom, it isn't the end of the world. And for dogs, we avoid dog areas because of dog waste and the hazards with that. As you know, sometimes kids like to explore in things that we'd rather they didn't, as well as because we're eating there. So because we also do not bring dogs to forest school as members ourselves, we want to just avoid dog areas in general for the same safety reasons. I'd like to offer some basic things to keep in mind while you're scouting for your base camp. So first of all, you want space to be able to spread out for children to be able to move around and crawl. You want to have room to lay out a tarp for your circle time, even if that's like sort of in a side area. You still want to keep in mind that if it's very overgrown, it's going to be difficult to have your base camp there. Also, interesting features, things like the term that's often used in forest school is loose parts. So sand, mud, sticks, rocks, leaves, pine cones, things that they can build with or make projects with, or artistic creations, or even imaginative play. These are things you want to look for in a base camp. Often fallen logs, trees, things like that. I, in particular, really prefer to have a base camp that offers some sort of water play, a gentle stream, or low levels in that area where water will pool after the rain and things like that. No nearby hazards. You want to keep in mind for areas that may have broken glass, dog waste. If it's a really dirty spot, that may not be the spot for you. Keep in mind also just physical hazards such as places where anybody can fall, or harmful plants, like if you see a lot of poison ivy, things like that. And also the distance to base camp. At least one base camp should be located within 15 minutes of an easy walk, a kid's pace walk at that, so about a half a mile from your initial meetup spot. Sometimes this can be too far for much younger children, or it can become boring sometimes to older children when they're anticipating playing at base camp. So keep in mind to have your main base camp that you can go to within a pretty near distance to your meetup spot. Feel free to pause this slide right here so that you can go ahead and read more details about scouting your base camp. Remember that there is no perfect spot. There is no perfect site. Don't let yourself get too caught up in trying to find the perfect spot. There will be pros and cons to every location you visit, and it's just a matter of outweighing what best suits the Free Forest School philosophy and your particular group. Check out enough places to give yourself some choices and pick the one you think is the best fit. Do take your own circumstances into consideration. If you will be the primary facilitator, at least at first, you'll want to make sure the location is convenient for you, so it isn't a struggle to get there every week. And this goes back to one of the first things we talked about, making sure it's fun and not a burden and something that you look forward to. So make it convenient for yourself as well. Now here are just some notes for my own chapter, and if somebody else from a different chapter is watching this, then you may just want to ignore this. But for me, I would appreciate being updated after your first few sessions so I know how it's going for you. For the first couple of meetups at your location, simply send me your group photos afterward, any event updates or issues, until you start feeling comfortable and have a desire to post these yourself. I'll do the admin work for you for now. Just go ahead and let me know when you feel ready to do it yourself. And be sure to ask questions anytime. We're all a team working together to bring free forest school to Oakland and Genesee County areas, and I'm sure that every other chapter feels the same way. Be sure to always let me know if you have any issues, conflicts, anything like that with any of the children or caregivers so that I can make myself available to help you problem solve any issue together. If you are watching this from our own Mid-Michigan chapter, here are some things I'll be sending you after you view this webinar. I'm going to send you the link to the Free Forest School Facilitator Facebook group. And this group is good to be a member of in case there's a question I'm unable to answer for you myself. And it's also a good tool to be able to search group topics. So for example, you might be looking up something about nature painting and you can type in paints into the group, and before asking your question you can sort of filter through and look at other topics that have been posted on that. So it's a useful resource for you as a new facilitator. I'm going to send you some Google documents as well, including the Forest School Facilitator Handbook that will go over some of these same exact things that I've posted here. The Scouting Guidelines document, the Site Worksheet for Scouting document, the document going back over weather cancellation protocol just so that you are able to have that information on hand when needed, and this link to the viewable webinar session, which if you're watching this, I must have already sent it. Thank you for volunteering and attending this training. I so appreciate the time and energy spent doing this. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me anytime. Again, my name's Catherine Ammon. There's my cell phone number down below and my email address. We are the Free Forest School of Mid-Michigan chapter, and if you are watching this from another chapter, by all means reach out to your director or to someone else from the organization you're in touch with. Good luck out there.